order and do that. So I'm calling the business meeting open at this point, and I'm going to have Pam read the minutes, and then we're going to ask for a motion to approve them and ask for a second, and then we're all going to vote on approving last month's minutes. We're starting right off, Robert's rules, okay? All right, Pam.
Okay, these were notes to myself. I did not realize that these were going to end up being official minutes, so I'm just gonna read what I wrote down for you guys, and you guys can listen and go from there. We were called into order in person at 6 p.m. by Jim last March 7th, 2022. We had in-person attendance, and we also did a Zoom at the same time that evening. We had Ray Hopper did a talk on help save the bees, and it wasn't necessarily with beekeepers in mind, but they're sponsoring a Bee City USA nationwide in conjunction with the Xerces Society. Emo introduced herself, and then each of us introduced ourselves to the groups and how our affiliation was. Jim talked about why we have the club, what we do, and talked about pollinators being butterflies, wasps, other types of bees and things too. Then benefits of membership would be that you are with other people that are doing things that you may be interested in learning more about. There also is the fact that you can do and loan out or get loaned out equipment for extraction. We also do a raffle for used equipment, which doesn't cost you anything. You just get equipment and then raffle it off. Bill Goff, who is a longtime member, who is no longer keeping bees, he's 90-some years old. He was introduced to the group. He is kind of like the honorary member. He's been with this group since its inception. Emo, who's our vice president, just basically stated she's happy to be here. And then we had Deborah, who's our event coordinator. She talked about volunteer positions for the events that we have coming up, and a little bit on the American Beekeepers Federation's conference that was in Las Vegas in January, and that the ABF conference will be in Florida in 2023, in January that year. I talked about the next meeting, and we'll be talking about some of the things from the conference from the ABF that I went to. We have more time to go through some of the pertinent stuff that was talked about down there. Okay. Mark, who is our social media manager back there, introduced himself, also introduced the Zoom connection and the QR codes that can be used for checking into the meeting. Randy, who is our membership treasurer in the back, he is taking care of all the dues. You can see him or mail them in. The dues are $25 per month. Excuse me, $25 per year. I wanted to pad that. Also talked about bees for sale. That there are several different people that have bees for sale. Vicky and Bill Cleary, Stefan Ron, Emu, I think has some.
Naomi.
Naomi?
She's in this month's.
Oh, okay, well, she's, okay, I put that down for sorry. Like I said,
Okay,
this
from
is
last-
my own- this is my own stuff. Then we had a discussion on becoming a 501c3 nonprofit organization. It cost about $1,200 for the initial setup. We need to do tax reporting yearly on it. We have to expand the board to include secretary on that. The board of the directors at this point in time can be the club officers, which are those of us that you see. Sherry Hill did this presentation for us. She's the one that we'll be working with, and as far as all the paperwork that needs to be involved in order to send that to the state for that. Okay. Let's see here, what else do I have? We need a recording secretary. We do not have one. There was a motion by Jim to spend the money for the nonprofit 501c3 expenditure. It was seconded by Philippe. I forgot to put his last name down, but anyway, he's here. Yeah, there you are. And it went to the membership there, and it was, and the motion passed. Let's see. Pardon me for a sec. Okay, Stefan talked about the state regulations through the Nevada Department of Agriculture. That there are certain things that we're going to need to be voted on the resource committee next year on that, which would include things like having your hives marked or stamped or something so that they know who they belong to. We talked a little bit about the extraction process of bottling and selling it on the market and how the producers have to have a certificate in order to do that. Leonard Joy, one of the other lifetime members, was going to be ordering bees from Conan. So if anyone is interested in that meeting to get a hold of him, there would be new packages of 3-pound bees for that. Sherry Hill, as I said, talked to us pretty extensively before on the 501c3 Foundation establishment. Let's see what else do I have here for you. Dan Fenwick, who was on Zoom, talked a little bit about the bees for vets that he and his wife do. And they need volunteers for that, so they put that out of participants. Stefan did a presentation very quick, down and dirty on swarm prevention, and that was then. It was, I think it was like 8:15 or something, or maybe a little bit later when we ended. That's all I have. Well done.
Okay. Do I do a motion to accept the minutes as read? Oh, a motion, okay. Yeah. Second?
Second.
Several seconds up front.
Okay, yeah.
All right, all in favor of accepting the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Nay? Nobody? Okay, great. Pass unanimously. All right, the treasurer's report is next up. Randy. Approximately, we don't need it to the cent.
I've got it to the cent this
Oh,
time.
okay.
We have $6,118.75 in our account as of tonight, and with more added tonight.
Sweet.
Okay, thank you. All right, great. That takes care of that agenda item. Do we have any update on our 501c3? Yes, Mark.
Not yet. To
Okay.
officially begin moving, we have to fill out all those positions, but I had some emails with Sherry and I was gonna follow up again this week with her after this meeting. So
Okay, so we do have to fill our secretary position.
that is the most critical. After we get the secretary one, we can move forward and complete the rest of it.
Because Pam did it last time, Emu is doing it this time. We need a secretary. And basically, all you have to do is, well, you get to sit up here and write notes. And that's it. We don't ask much more.
And then
All right.
on the board, I have the QR code again for those who want to put in their contact information.
Okay,
If you did it last week, you don't need to do it again.
so that was our reminder of officer openings to fill. Though, Stefan, you're still planning on moving this summer? Oh, yes, he is. Okay, well, we will need a mentor coordinator. Stefan has been our mentor coordinator and has done a fabulous job. What, this is your third, fourth year, fifth year, or sixth year. It's like forever. Fabulous. Okay, social events. Deborah.
Real quick, we have a couple of events coming this month. I'm doing a Kitty Academy of South Reno on the 14th. TMCC is doing an Earth Day at the Dandini Research Facility on the 20th from 9:30 to 1:30. But I need volunteers for animal art. That's on the Saturday and Sunday, the 23rd and 24th. It's from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. You can come out, just talk about bees. Even if you don't know anything about bees, but want to learn, that's a great way to do it, is volunteer. And we need to just come up and talk to me and we can sign you up and you can see the animals for free while you're there.
Okay, great. And I want to do a quick update because I don't see Ray here tonight on the city of Reno becoming a bee city USA. That's going before city council to be voted on April 27th. And he did send out a note that Truckee Meadows Community College, TMCC, has already been approved in the month of March to be a learning institution member. I guess it's a campus, yes, a V campus. And there's certain things that you have to do. You have to cut down on pesticide use on your grounds. You have to have educational facilities, classes offered, and support pollinators. Okay, so I was pretty jazzed to hear that TMCC's already done that. Okay, so next we have a special presentation on a deep hive, which is a little bit different than the Langstroth hive. So I guess you guys want to come up here? Mark, where's the camera aimed?
Up in the front, but I can
Okay.
always change angles.
Oh, we can change angles, okay?
It's okay, this is good right here.
Okay, let's change the camera angle so we see them.
It's done.
Right there, okay,
There
good,
we go.
all right.
Did we all get the presentation?
If I can find my arrow, there it is.
So I'm Courtney and this is Chris. We are kind of new beekeepers. We've been doing this for about 3 years. We moved to Reno about 7 or 8 years ago and then started beekeeping pretty much when COVID hit and we had the time to actually invest in beekeeping. So you can go ahead and go to the next slide already.
Give me 1 second, I'm turning on presentation mode here.
Oh, yeah, no worries. So, we had researched beekeeping for quite a while, trying to figure out the best kind of hives for us. And it wasn't probably like a lot of people until COVID hit and we started looking for more that we could actually, start actually invest in these hives. So we were using the lay-in style hive. That's just a quick introduction. We'll just keep rolling right on through. So here's us in our first beekeeping experience of our first year. So I'm a geologist and Chris is a carpenter. And like I said, we discovered this lay-in style hive when we were researching prior to our first swarm catch. So when we realized that what the bee list was, we got on the bee list and joined the club. And then we were like, oh gosh, now we have to go get these bees. And we enlisted help from the bee club and Barbara Smith really helped us get rolling and helped us get our first swarm. This is our first swarm that we caught up in Gold Hill and some of the first honey that we extracted that same year, which was really awesome. I tend to be the one that talks a lot, so Chris is just gonna interrupt if I miss something and hand up the question. So this is a Russian style hive. This has been around for quite a while. I actually brought this book if anyone wants to check it out. This book was published in the late 1800s, so I think it's like 1897 when it was first published in Russian, and this is a translated edition. So this style of hive has been around for a really long time. And George C. Lands is the one that kind of, like I said, perfected it. He has all kinds of, from basket hives, and he talks about the stackable hives too. So it's a really good resource. Anytime that you look up these type of lay-in hives, you'll pretty much always find Dr. Leo Sharaskin, because he's the one that sort of brought it here and advocates for it. And we actually order a lot of things from his website online, like foundation, feeders, they have hives and stuff there as well. So that's his website there, and they have a lot of different YouTube videos that feature him as well. Next slide. So these hives in particular are unique because they're single level, and the reason that we were excited about that is that I was nervous if I was doing it by myself or one of us were, we were both together about lifting the heavy boxes, and that was one of the big reasons why we went for the style hive. Some of the benefits is that it's a little bit deeper and it does take foundation as opposed to other top bar hives. And what they advertise, and I haven't actually been able to communicate with my bees, whether they think it's really feels like a tree hollow, but that's kind of the idea that the shape really mimics a tree hollow by being the deeper style. We did bring a hive. This is one that we make our own hives now. We bought the first one to while we were getting used to it, and then since
Swinging hammer.
somebody got volunteered to make our hives after that. And so if you want to look at these, you know, we can look more closer during the break. But they're all closed at the top. And the idea behind that is you get more of an attic sort of style setup where the hive will ventilate and go out the top. And so it's kind of like your house has an attic. It sort of makes that type of closure. And the nice thing about that is that when, like for us, when you're doing your first inspections, you can access all parts of the hive at once from one level. And you can sort of scoot the frames over if you want to just inspect the brood or, you know, just inspect parts. The rest of the bees don't really know you're there, so it's a lot less disturbance, a lot less bees in your face, which is nice for new beekeepers, and just for like the general disturbance of the bees. It also, like I said, it has less cross combing compared to Top Bar because it does accept foundation. So they're not just sort of making things however they want. And what we've been doing is doing foundation on some, and sometimes we'll, you know, scoot a couple in between that don't have foundation just because it can be expensive. So we just sort of like spread it out and we don't always use it. And this is a nice picture on the lower right of capped brood in a nice pattern. And that's typically, I think I have it on another slide, but typically they kind of cluster in the winter in the middle. And then the frames themselves are big enough to put honey at the top so that they don't have to go move frames or move boxes during the winter. So that's all capped honey at the top, and then they have their brood below. Okay. So one thing is getting started with these type of hives. It is a little different. You can't buy a nuke because it doesn't have the same size frames. So you're a little bit limited. Most of the advocates, like I said, Dr. Saraskian, they really advocate for local bee propagation, which is why we went for the swarm capture for our first. You can also, of course, split, or you could use package bees. We have friends that have started with this type of hive, and they're going to install a set of package bees this year. I think one of our favorite things to do now that we know how to do it is do the swarm capture. So that worked really well for us, and they really took to the hive pretty quickly. You can split. There's a divider board that'll fit in the middle. You can actually do an in-hive split, you know, to see if they make the queen successfully, or you can do the walk-away split. We typically don't put more than one like colony of bees in one box. It just gets a little too confusing for us. So we would do the walk-away split, or a couple weeks ago we caught our own swarm. Whoops, a little behind on catching that one. So that worked really well too. So this is, you know, swarm capture. This is a trap. We built a little trap, which is really nice for storing frames. And then when our bees did swarm, we just sort of encouraged them to go into this trap, which is a 6-frame little trap. And then there's the hive itself. So again, you talk a little bit this week. Chris makes his own hives, like you said. We do the.
Yeah, I make these at home, out of the shop and back, and currently materials are a little expensive, so things are a little costly right now. But for around $500, you can get set up with just about everything you need, with the whole hive and up to about 19 frames fit in there.
And like I said, the second part, just that it's not just us that do these kind of hives, so it's kind of good to know that you can source this online. He's actually stopped making the hive that we bought ourselves because of wood costs, but he has one version that he makes, and then he imports some from Italy, which are just like a variation of this type of hive. So there are some available there. Benefit of ours is that we've tested ours, you know, we're supporting local, and we've tested ours in our climate. So we made a couple little changes for like a little increased airflow that we've noticed is nice for our area. So
we kind of customized, you know, we took the basic idea that he had and just, yeah, kind of changed what we thought was better ventilation in general.
and we added some more
And like,
frames. Yeah.
Bigger, we wanted more, so.
The longer the box is, it's harder to move it, but then like if they start filling it up, you can just sneak some more frames in there rather than having to like continually harvest. So we found that we wanted a few more frames to give us a little bit.
So the last picture on there, I see the little electrical things.
Yeah.
So you're actually embedding wax in the wire.
That's what we
Condition on
do,
the
yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, we just hook it up to a car battery, and either a little separate one or right to the car if that one's dead, which is what happened recently. And it just heats that wire up a little bit and it just
Like
melts right in
10
there.
seconds or something, and it says if
Mhm.
you do it too much, then you end up with slices.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then if we want to start some that just doesn't have that whole sheet, we'll just like tear off a little piece at the top and we'll just melt the top. We usually only do that if we know they're gonna start building, so it doesn't like slide off, or we thought about maybe twisting the wire a little bit so it holds it a little bit, but some, we don't always do the full sheet. It's been working really well. So here's extracting, that is, one question when you have different frames, of a different size. They do have on that horizontalhive.com, they have extractors, so you can buy manual or motor extractors. They're just expensive because they have to be universal. So I'm not sure, I'm just unsure if I just get any universal extractor like off Amazon or something that'll fit our frame. So we've just been doing crush and strain. We're thinking about buying that extractor that fits our frame this year because, we're invested now. We know we like it. There's not really a risk there. So we'll probably invest in an extractor. And one of our friends did buy an extractor. So at least we have that if we have a really big harvest year. The nice thing about this frame is they kind of organize themselves. So they tend to put their brood sort of near the door. And like I said, they put their honey at the
Great.
top that they're gonna use over the winter. And I just colored those like with a little highlighter. So once you start getting these full frames of honey, they're into their surplus. And so we usually leave like 2 of those and then you can kind of harvest the rest. And if we're not sure, then we go through and count and be like, is this 50 pounds or so? And then, but usually you kind of know, and actually people have said that you don't need 50 pounds in this type because they're not jumping boxes, but we usually still just leave 50 pounds just in case. You can always harvest it later. So I really wanted to test that and then have them go free. So yeah, the wire itself that's in that frame is so that the comb doesn't fly out if you are using an extractor.
How many pounds does the picture on the left read?
Yeah, it says 8.8, I think it's 4.2 or 4.7, so it's 9 pounds of full frame. So each frame itself is heavier when it's full, but you don't have to do the boxes. So there is a little bit of give and take, especially when you're extracting. Usually I'll pull up a frame and sort of set it on the side. Each one is a little bit heavier. We thought about adding like a little handle on the top, but we haven't really done anything like that yet, but maybe. So yeah, in the first year we just did it with a spaghetti strainer, and that we caught a really big swarm. So we were able to harvest just a little bit just for experience in our first year. So this is the biggest hurdle we ran into. We were scrambling for mite treatment because that typical oxalic acid that vaporizes tool didn't fit in the door because the frame is right there. So the first year, I would say this was our biggest hurdle. Like, oh my gosh, what mite treatment are we gonna do? Our tool doesn't fit. So it's just something good to think about ahead of time. What we found is that we like the oxalic acid treatment. So we bought a more expensive tool, the Oxibate tool, and also the strip treatments work. So our friend that's doing it now this year, she's using 8 of our strips that hang right in the middle, just like any other hive. So not really a big deal. We actually made a couple holes in the back, so we don't even have to like disturb them in the front. We just do the vaporizer straight in the back. So that tool's super nice and it's great for winter, but it's another investment. So you don't have to go straight to that, but we chose to do it that way. And I think we're gonna try the bar, at least on one of the hives this fall, just to see how it does. We do like that this is all organic too, so. But. We said overwintering, you don't have to put any insulation around. We just really were wanting to coddle our bees this winter and not lose them. So we were at the last minute when it was getting cold, we grabbed some insulation and we just covered the outside and strapped it on there. We use a little, that's a wool blanket with just some pine shaving, and you just stick it right over the top. You lift the divider board up a little bit to give them some space so that attic will work in throughout the winter. And they did really great. So like I said, since they're not migrating to new boxes, the idea is that they're not taking as much energy, and all of our bees came out of winter with a ton of surplus honey. And then, like I said, we got our friend started with this hive. She had even more than we did. So we were pretty excited. And this is all like this, this year, this is all, all this honey that they had left, and this was last month when we inspected, so. So this is a little video if it works. This is our very first bee inspection, probably maybe not the most impressive since we were new, but this really is the very first time we ever went in it. And so it just kind of shows you that as a beginning beekeeper, this hive works really well. Like we went through every single frame. I felt I don't know that I would do anything different. So I just thought it was a good video to show, like, we set up the camera so that we could like judge ourselves a little bit later. And like, if we had something wrong, or we could zoom in if we were like questioning what we were looking at. And it was really easy. And then the right pictures there's our queen after overwintering. This is this year, looking great. And this was 2 weeks ago when we were talking to a friend through her first swarm capture, and then I went, Chris goes, look outside, and there go our bees. So they went to our neighbor's bush. We got that trap out. We just set it next to it, made a little bridge, and they loved it. They went right in.
Yeah.
Don't mind us. We're just hanging out near bush and getting our bees back. So it's been really good. And that's it. We wanted to keep it nice and short, and so Chris brought some of his cards. He's a local pepper project.
Well, I went to a presentation of a organic beekeeper down in Sonoma, California. And he tried something called a double deep. So he took the Langstroth box and he the deep frames, and then he took the bottom off of one and he attached it. So they were much longer. And so it's kind of a similar process. Yours aren't quite the double deep, but as you said, it's much more similar to the tree cavity that bees are used to. And he said it's more natural, and the benefit also is that they don't have to climb up in another box,
It's cold.
yeah,
and
it
they
is
run out.
cold and they can't actually get up there. Where they have that entire frame to work on.
Yeah,
So,
that's
We
what
were
we
just talking about that, experimenting with some deeper frames too. And deep, more custom hives. If anybody kid comes up with an idea of their own hive, we could talk to you about that too. We'd be happy to help you build it. If you have any interest in these, once again, we'll have more information, during the social.
and how deep are those? It looks like, what, about 20?
Yeah, let's grab
inch?
one.
Yeah.
I
It's
should have-
about 16 inches, 17 inches.
Oh, okay.
I should know the number, but I'm not entirely.
Okay, yeah. Well, that looks like 16.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's about 16.
And there's your wire that you had your electrodes
Yeah.
hooked up to, yeah. Embed your wax, yeah.
Yeah. Seems to be working really good, like, especially for new beekeepers, so feel like we're learning a lot, but we're still only in our third year, and it's been going great. And maybe sometimes that's the make or break it. If you are successful from the beginning, you have a good experience at the beginning, you're more likely to keep going on it, so we've been really excited about it.
How many times do you have now?
3. Mhm. We started with 1, and I think because of that mite treatment, ours didn't make it through the first winter. And we kept doing mite counts, and we knew that their mite counts were high. So then we realized the next year, okay, we need to really figure this mite treatment out. And now all of our hives are making it through really well. So mostly space issues too. We're right downtown, so. Keep it to 3, but it is kind of addicting, so we'll see how much we can squeeze back there.
What was it about your bite treatment that caused your bees to die off or?
It
leave?
was just that we weren't anticipating that the tool would fit through the door.
Uh-huh.
And since we were new, we didn't know, like, we kept trying to find different ways to fix that, and we ended up going with a totally different treatment. But by that time, we already had a mite problem, and we were doing the mite count, so we knew we had a mite problem.
Uh-huh.
And so I don't know if they had disease or what was going on, but
Yeah, well, we're just starting. I want to avoid that, from the first year. I don't know if I'll be able to do that, but
yeah, and I mean, we have this tool now, so we'd be happy to help somebody if they want, like, especially if they catch a swarm and they need something right away. Because Apivar is only available in the fall, but that seemed like a really successful treatment that we didn't know about.
So to help cover that concern, basically, is you need to just treat your mites early on in their case, they weren't able to, and that'll help keep your mites down and it'll prevent your hives from swarming or leaving the box or anything like that.
Okay, what's considered early? I mean, as soon as you put the
Today.
nukes in.
Yeah, as soon as you can, basically.
Okay.
There's
Now,
different types of treatments that can be done at different times of year. So you kind of have to look at which ones you can do and treat them early, and that'll keep those mites
Are
down.
there treatments that you can use prior to putting the nukes in? I mean,
Most of it is on the bees themselves, so nothing in the box.
okay, okay.
what we do now is if we catch a swarm, we treat right when we catch them, because we know there's no brood, and then we do a pretty intense fall treatment, and then we do one more in the winter when we know there's no attack rate, so. Yeah.
I mean, it's always good also to inspect also like the big thing that we want to keep pesticide out of the nature. You also should be inspecting our hives, like if there's no need for treatment, then why are you gonna spend
Sure.
the pesticide or all the chemicals in the beehive when it's not needed? So like always doing, there's the alcohol wash, doing those things, it's always important to do so. I mean, it's kind of pointless to treat for the sake of treating when it's not needed. That's when you're gonna know when it's early enough to do it, when you have a high enough mite count
Okay.
to treat it. So if the numbers are low, like why bother with this?
Okay.
You're just putting chemicals inside of a hive, like when it's not needed. So inspection.
Yeah, any other questions?
Well, I have a question concerning do you use queen excluders?
No, but they are, we do get the plastic queen excluders that you could put in there, but they don't really need it because they already organize their hive like that. So we've never had them like accidentally, like there's brood over here and honey over here, and it's like I didn't realize they were so organized. So they always put their brood towards the door and then the honey at the end. So makes it really easy. But you could cut one of the plastic ones and get it to fit if you want. Thanks.
Okay,
Thanks for
well,
your
thank
time.
you. Okay, well, let's see. So we're not quite ready for our social break. So the mite treatment is real important. And, you know, we could talk about it in every single meeting. There are different treatments you use during the summer. The Apivar, like she says, really only a fall. You can't use Apivar if you're going to be harvesting honey. You know, so once you put the Apivar in, you've got to leave the whatever honey is in there for the rest of the season, which is why the oxalic acid works great. One of my favorite places to go is Randy Oliver's Scientific Beekeeping. He has an Excel spreadsheet that he lets you download. And you do the mite wash either with the alcohol, which is the best, or you can use a powdered sugar one if you don't want to kill your bees. And then you put in the number of mites you find per, half a cup of bees or whatever it is. I think it's 300 bees is the usual sample. And then he knows how fast the mites will grow and expand in your hive. And so he has these curves, and as soon as it starts going up, you want to knock it down. As long as you can keep it down, your hive will survive. But once it gets past a certain point, it really is death to the hive because the mites just kind of overcome it. So our mentor provider here knows a lot about mites.
So on the club's drive,
Okay,
Got it open here?
actually, yeah,
in the,
Mark just brought it up.
in the useful information on the club's drive, under mentors,
The mentor program,
yep, and then,
useful info,
yeah, and then Randy Oliver's spreadsheet.
that's right there.
So this spreadsheet you can download off of Randy Oliver's website, and it is a fantastic. If you go down, you can actually, he talks in depth, like he goes super nerd on all this stuff, and you can put in the size of your brood areas, what time of year you're seeing brood and all that other stuff. And he gives specific instructions on how to change all these different aspects within there. But go back to the main one there. But basically what it comes down to is if you have 50 mites at the beginning of the season, this doesn't look right because it should have crashed by now, but if you have 50 mice, which is really easily feasible because there's mites everywhere, you will crash by September, October. The hive will just overrun with
Is
mice.
this 50 mites in the 24-hour count or 50 mites total per a regular hive?
So in your mite wash, so that's, or 50 mites in the entire hive, and you can figure that out because you'll have one mite in your wash. And if you have one mite in your wash, then that translates to roughly 50 mites in the whole hive. And so for doing a mite wash, the most reliable way to get numbers for a mite wash is you check your brood, and the first resource frame outside of the brood chamber, you take that frame, and every time it is the first frame outside of the brood chamber. So, usually they'll have their brood on like, say, 8 frames, and then the frames on the side, those are the first resource frames where they'll have pollen and nectar and stuff like that. If they're full of brood, then you just go up above and you just first frame outside of it. You take that frame, make sure your queen's not on there, shake her off in a bowl. All the bees go down, sing a little song, telling the old bees to fly away. And then what you want is young bees that don't fly yet. And the reason is because they're the ones that are going to be most likely to have the mites on them. And so, so I have a bowl about this big, and I just kind of shake them if I haven't found the queen previously. I just look in there, make sure the queen's not in there, because once you wash her, she's dead for sure. I scoop out half a cup of bees, put them in a little mite container. I didn't know I was gonna talk about this, otherwise I would have brought one. I would have even brought the mite treatments, but anyways, then you just shake them, and you sit there and you shake them for about a minute, and you can set it down and come back, shake it again. You want to give it a minute or two for all the mites to release from the bees. And then when you hold it up, because I have 300, these easy checks. I love these things. They are the most expensive piece of plastic you'll ever buy, but they are very handy. And so you just hold them up and you see the mites on the very bottom of there. If I see more than 1 or 2 mites, I'm treating. I just don't. They say that your threshold is usually 2 to 5%, depending on which resource you use, which would be anywhere from 6 to 15 mites. To me, if you're that level, they're just too much. Like you are not going to be able to bring them down with your mite treatments in order to get them to a sustainable level before winter. And, I mean, except for,
They all survived.
she had 72 in my wash a couple of years back, and it was, I'm amazed that they survived. That was astounding. So,
But they were a wild swarm, so they must have had a high.
Really?
and they probably had a pretty good knowledge, which is great. Yeah. So, yeah, you might do my wash. What was it? Anyways,
Which alcohol do you use?
91% isopropyl alcohol. Anything less than that won't release all the bees. When isopropyl alcohol was really hard to get, Randy Oliver was saying you could use it was like a tablespoon in a cup of water or something like that. I don't know. He said that would really just use alcohol. It's just so much easier. But if you use like 71% or the 51% that's out there, they won't release the mites. So you need the 91% for sure. Anything else? Oh. Okay. So anyways, go to Randy Oliver's website and you just look up his row model and
Just to let you know, he has now an online version. You don't need the spreadsheet to download it.
just use the online.
So Mark is
But-
gonna show that to everybody. You can just
Since I
go,
get it.
Well, that means you need a smartphone, right?
no, just need a computer. And so you
Oh,
can,
just need a computer with internet, right?
Does
Yes, with internet.
the online version allow you to modify the
Yeah, you just pretty
Oh,
much
there's Death.
plug
I
and
see
play all your
Drop.
values. So he had an intern of his, this is from Randy Oliver's intern. And she designed this website, so now you can do it on the fly.
That's awesome.
No.
For those of us who don't like Excel.
Brian's just got this website.
Yeah, it's still on. his
It's
website.
on his
And,
website.
and the other thing is, let's see, if I can scroll down, but down here, he put.
Shut up.
percentage of kill. And so every mite treatment you look at, it'll have a range of kill that it has for the amount of brood that's in the hive. And so you can actually put in, 70% or 50% or 99% if you're using some of them. And and then it'll drop those mite numbers down by that much, and then you can watch how long it'll take for it to grow again. But so it's really nice with this, if you know your mite treatments really well, and you know exactly how what percentage they're gonna kill, then you can use this to only have to wash maybe a couple times a year instead of every month.
Mark,
I don't
can
mind
you
killing it.
insert something, say April 15th there, put in a 70%?
This one?
Yep, how many there's 70?
700%.
Yep, 700. So let me scroll up.
Okay, it did a little bump and your flat line at the top didn't happen quite as quick. So let's do another treatment, say June, yeah. Month and a half later.
We're going up.
Another 70%. Because I think the oxalic vapor is about 70 or so.
Yeah, so the oxalic
There you
vapor is only gonna give you about 70% kill if you do it once a week for 3 weeks. If there's brood in the hive. If there's no brood in the hive, it'll give you 95% kill rate. But you only get that in December and January here.
Okay.
We have brood.
And then let's go out to the middle of September and let's say we've already harvested and we're gonna put in an Aprovar, which is 90. We'll see if we make it through the winter. Yes, we made it through the winter. There's no drop off to death.
Barely survived.
Barely survive. Okay, so that's kind of what this spreadsheet does. You can, like Stefan said, each of the treatments has a specific percentage that it takes care of. And like I say, oxalic acid is probably close to 70 for the vapor treatment. The dribble is probably less. It's probably down 55 or 60, which is just an oxalic water mix that you put 5 cc's per frame. A seam, I guess it's called, in between the frames. And then, of course, that 90% there is the Aprovar. So that's why the mite treatment is so necessary. You can see that, they keep wanting to build up, but if you do it at least 3 or 4 times, and like Stefan said, the oxalic is once a week for 3 weeks is really the best way to use the oxalic acid. And then you can wait a couple months and do another. Okay, well, good. I think it's that was a real quick mite treatment preview for you all, especially you newbies out there. You saw when it flatlined at the top, that's hive death. You've got to take care of them before they get to that point. Yes.
Jim, have you had any experience with Hop Guard?
I haven't used it. Oh, here's our Hop Guard guy.
I love Hop Guard.
Yeah, me too.
It's
Shot my bees through the last
Yeah,
4 seasons.
it does really well, and what's really nice about Hop Guard is that, it's only 80 to 85% effective. And it's a little bit less with brood in there, but you can use it in the middle of the summer when you have honey supers on. And that's what I like about it.
It's natural and it's
Yeah.
not poisonous.
What is it?
Do you have to worry about the temperature? Or do you have to worry about
Not
the
with Hop Guard. The absolute best mite treatment out there is the formic acid ones, the Mite Away quick strips and stuff like that, but it gets way too hot here to use it. If it gets above 85 degrees, so it's.
How do you apply this Hop Guard?
Hop Guard, it comes in a an aluminum sealed packet that, and as soon as you open it, it makes a mess everywhere. It's this brown goopy gunk.
In the
Yeah.
States.
In the States, and you pull it out, and then you just, fold-
Skunk weed.
you fold- it's, cardboard, you fold it up, and you just slide it
Kind of
down.
like the Apgar strips then.
Yep.
Just insert it in.
Yep.
It's a derivative of hops that we make beer out of.
Oh, hops is kind of funky smelling.
How long do you leave them in for?
So they say 14 days, but if they last for 14 days, so because they're cardboard, the bees just tear it apart and they throw it out. And then there will be a little plastic, like the border of the thing, there'll be a little strip of plastic in there. You just pull that out. But the hot bar itself is usually gone within a few weeks.
There's a new version now, it's a Hopgar 2.
Three.
Three now, outside the ABI. So it's nice, they're changing the formulation and not as messy.
Can you use that year round or do you still have to use something different in the fall?
So you should always be trying to rotate your treatments. So personally, I like to use oxalic acid and hot guard. And then if the mice get out of control, then Acabar is my go-to.
Okay.
But you want to rotate them because although there isn't any proof showing of resistance to hot guard or oxalic acid, but I don't want to be the person that causes it to happen. So I rotate mine.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions on my treatment? Scientificbeekeeping.com is Randy Oliver's site.
This is on chickabuzz.com. So this intern, she gets a little credit for putting this together. So that's chickabuzz.com.
Okay.
And I'll leave that screen up as we go on break.
Okay,
Thank you.
well, if there's no more questions there, I say we take our social break.
Well, one quick question
Oh,
online.
yes.
Is there a local place to buy mite treatments?
No.
Nothing local.
There was.
Yes, kind of. You can buy wood bleach, which is oxalic acid, but you want to make sure that it's actually 100% wood bleach. You can buy it from Mad Lake for an absorbent price, or you can go to like Ace Hardware.
Or Home Depot.
And just look for wood bleach, but it has to be specifically the powdered wood bleach, and you want it to be oxalic acid. Randy Oliver recommends the dihydrate, but the anhydrate works too. You just use a little bit less of it.
Also, the feed store, sometimes they have it, sometimes. They had it last year. This year, I just checked it, they didn't have anything. Right there about Bonanza.
Green seed.
Oh, Green Street, thank you.
Answer question.
Okay, that's, oh,
Today's dessert is honey, lemon poppy seed muffins, partially my honey and partially Stefan's. I had too many batches to make, so I had to use this.
made by hand, Pam.
Hey, shut up. Stop.
Need to go potty? I guess everybody needs to go. Okay. Go potty.
questions segment? All right, well, nobody's saying no, but they're, okay, yeah. Make sure you get some muffins here because otherwise you're gonna need energy to make it through this next presentation. They were delicious. Okay, so we are gonna talk about swarm rescue, which last time we had a real quick presentation by Stefan on swarm prevention. And we'll touch on that today as to why, these bees took off. And let me just pull this up because this is probably one of the best things. See the queen cells on the bottom? I think one queen cell got bent up a little bit. But anyway, this queen cell is already open. This one looks like it was kind of sealed. This one over here, open. That's what you're looking for when you go in because that means it's going to swarm. There's nothing you can really do to stop them. So unless you find the queen, take her about half her group out and put them in a new box. Okay, so the queen, she already knows they're getting ready to swarm, and so she's going to get ready to take off. So you can't just take the queen cells out because the queen is already thinking it's time to take off. So put her in a new box. We also talked about just doing walkaway splits. In fact, Philippe said he just did one, and he said it was too cold to really do anything else. He couldn't go through and, separate them. So he just went in, took half of them out. Some of the queen cells go in this one, some queen cells there. He doesn't care what box the queen is in because whatever box she's in, she'll keep doing what she's doing. The other box has some queen cells. If there's enough bees in there to keep them warm, keep those cells warm, they'll hatch, and then they will have what I call the Game of Thrones fight to the death. There can be only one queen ruling this box. So now we've got a swarm. It's like the queen and half her group took off. The reason you don't want to have a swarm is if you want to make honey, you want to have as many bees in there making honey as possible. And if the queen takes off with half your bees, there goes half of your workforce for making honey. So we do have a swarm list. At the break, we actually got one person to put on. Mark, our media coordinator and all-around very knowledgeable person, also runs our website, and he will put people on a swarm list. So for swarms, we want to know what area of Reno Sparks, Northern Nevada, you want to go to collect a swarm. I'm on for North Reno and Sun Valley, and maybe up in a little bit in the North Valleys, but I don't do Galena, I don't Geiger grade, I'm not going down there to get a swarm. Unless, it's just an emergency, they're attacking my grandmother, you've got to, all right, so swarm, once you get the call, there was a PDF file that I sent out on the newsletter, swarm vetting questions. You want to find out if they're really honeybees. You don't want to go out for a bunch of yellow jackets or, it's like meat bees or something. So, if they tell you they're coming out under the ground, from the ground under the side of the house, yeah, no, that's not it, Okay, so ask them, text me a picture. Let me see what this swarm is. How big is it? When you're asking them how big, is it as big as a softball? Is it the size of a football? Is it a basketball size? You know, give them some reference to the size. Then you want to find out, where is it? Is it on a fence post, 3 foot off the ground? And it's 2 basketballs, it's like, that's going to tell you how much equipment you need to take. Okay. If it's at the top of a tree, how high is it? Can I touch it? Do I need a ladder? Do I need a really big ladder? Okay, so how long have they been there? Did they just arrive in the past hour? And then you say, you get to all these other questions, okay, I'll be out. It's going to take you a little while to get your stuff together unless you travel around with a swarm kit in the back of your car. At this time of year, there are beekeepers that travel with a swarm kit. Okay, so before you leave, call or text back. Is the swarm still there? Swarms are notorious for hanging out for 20 minutes, and then the queen has rested up. She takes off and goes a little further. Now she's down the block, at the top of the pine tree. Okay. How long have they been there? Have they been there for 2 days, 3 days? Are they building comb? Can you see white comb up there? If they've been there for 2 or 3 days and they started building comb, they're really hungry and grouchy. Okay, so you're gonna need to take a smoker. A lot of times with a swarm, if it's a fresh swarm, you can just walk right into the middle of them. They're just all buzzing around you. They don't care about you. You probably don't even need a suit. I remember I went out on a swarm once. I showed up. It was moving to another bush. I didn't have time to do anything to dress up. I'm in my t-shirt. I'm kind of chasing the swarm with my rescue box. And I go over there and I set it there. And then I come back to kind of get my other stuff. I like to put my box up on a table so it's not sitting right on the ground. And the homeowner said, I could tell you were a beekeeper. You just went right into the middle of them in a t-shirt without a veil. Okay, so swarms are not going to be defensive like they are when you open their hive and steal their honey. It's like they don't have anything to protect. All right, are the bees on the caller's property? Okay, they may see them, but they're actually on the neighbor's property, and that guy's really grouchy and he's got a shotgun. Make sure you know where you're going, okay? Is in a tree, a bush, under the eaves. Under the eaves is one of the worst ones. I hate doing that. Because a lot of times they will have found a little hole and the queen has already gone into the little hole and it's already in the house. And the rest of them are just on the outside because of pheromones out there and they haven't got in yet. And at that point, you can rescue bees, but you're up, on the side of a house and they're not going to stay around because the queen's not going to be there. You can spend, 4 or 5 hours, you get home, you try to set them in a box, 30 minutes later, they're gone. Okay, so know where you're going, know what you're going to do. You almost never get a correct estimate of height. Okay, oh yeah, they're only 10 feet up, well, that's 24 feet. So try and get some reference, is there a fence next to it? Is there a window in close by? Is there a car in the background? Get some point of reference. Try to get them to take a picture and text you a point of reference. Your ladder, is your ladder going to be able to go up onto this tree? Bill Clary was telling me about going up into the top of this tree and about putting up his ladder. He's got a really tall one. First thing he does, he makes sure that the ladder is attached to the tree. I don't know whether you use ratchet ties or somehow, but just rope. Okay, you don't want your ladder slipping and moving on you, especially in a wind like today. Okay? I travel with ratchet ties. That's the number one thing that I have in my swarm box. I have at least 4 ratchet ties. One of those ratchet ties goes up on the ladder, you know, top rung, second top rung, around the tree, boom. So even if it slips, at least the ladder is there and I can kind of come down it almost like a rope ladder straight if I have to. But usually I try to get a pretty good angle because when you're coming down with a box of bees and they're buzzing out everywhere, you know. Next thing he does, he makes sure that he's not going to fall off that ladder. He basically ties yourself
to the ladder.
to the ladder. And that gives you the ability to work up there. Okay, so when I go up after bees in a tree, I take a cardboard box. That's usually the first thing I'm going up with. But there's a whole bunch of stuff you do before you get there. The second PDF on there was swarm collection equipment. Ground cover sheet. I just take a regular white sheet and spread it out underneath where I'm going to be coming down. That was another thing that Bill told me about. Luckily, both he and his wife Vicky were all dressed. He's up there. How big a swarm was it? Probably a basketball size.
Bigger.
Bigger, you know, 3-4 pound bunch of bees clustered up there. He goes to get the branch. They don't fall in the box. They fall straight down.
Boom.
They fall on Vicky. Yeah, they're crawling all over. Okay, because
I had half.
oh, you had that. Okay. But when a swarm falls, they're still bunched. You know, they don't have
Oh my
time to
God.
all kind of take off and fly. This bunch is heavy. Boom! They're going to come down. Put this white ground cloth under. And if it's white, you're going to be able to see them crawling around. If they fall in the grass, they just kind of disappear into the grass. And, you know, white cloth, you can kind of bring it back up, get them and pour them out. Pruning shears, loppers. A lot of times you got to cut a branch. Don't cut until you ask the homeowner. I went into one, the swarm was up in her peach tree and she said, no, don't cut any of my branches. That's my favorite peach tree. I want peaches. Just get the swarm. You know, so I could not, you know, cut anything out. If they don't care, if it's an old pine tree with just limbs, you know, sometimes you can cut the branch, make sure you're holding one side as you cut, so the whole thing doesn't drop. And then you can just bring the whole branch down or put it over your box. You know, there's different ways to do that. But also be aware that once you actually make the cut, sometimes just that cut causes the whole branch to shake or kind of crunch a little bit, and the bees will start to fall off. Like I say, I like to use a cardboard box and quickly just fold the sides and then just put my arm around it and then come down the ladder with one hand, box in the other. You know, I'm not one of those guys that can Jackie Chan slide down the sides of the ladder, you know, and get the bad guys or something. All right, a scoop for getting bees that fell in a bunch, or I use a plastic gallon jug and just cut it out and make a scoop. It's already got a handle on it. There's my scoop, you know, and if you use a milk jug that has 4 sides, you can have a flat bottom. They're easy to trim up. If it gets bent, stored over winter, you throw it away, make another one. Recycle it, you don't throw it away. Okay, then those are things you need to get up there. You're coming down, you have a box of bees. I take my old Langstrom box. I have a little folding plastic picnic table that folds up flat. I set that out. This gets, the box up, 2 or 3 feet off the ground. I put my ratchet tie under it to start. And the ratchet tie just goes over the edge of the table. Because I don't want to be lifting this box to get the ratchet tie in once the bees are in there. I'll come down and take the cardboard box just right on top. Sometimes you just have to let it sit there for a little bit if they're buzzing too much. Sometimes I can come down and I give it a good shake and I lift it up and there's this pile of bees on top of the frames in there. I always try to keep some old frames that have drawn out comb and some honey. A swarm has no honey, only what they had in their mouths when they took off and they could be hungry. And if you've got some honey in there, they're gonna stay. As long as you got the queen. That's the big thing. If you get the big ball, the queen's gonna be in the middle of it. But if everybody's flying and you don't know. And usually I have to take about 4 more trips up the ladder because you've got all the scouts coming back and all the bees that started flying. And so you've always got these extra balls and each time you go up, it's a little less. And usually what I'll do then is leave my box sitting on this table until dusk. Don't pack up at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and go home. Because you've got all these scouts, you're gonna have 1,000, 2,000 bees still sitting up there. And the people are gonna call you and say, well, the swarm's back. Well, it's not really back. These are the scouts that just, well, you guys are, okay. So I leave my box sitting there and if it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I'll just go home. I'll put a top kind of on it, but I'll leave it about 3 inches open. I won't close it up yet. And the bees that were up there in that tree, they'll realize the queen's gone. They won't be smelling her, but the ones in the box, you'll know if the queen's in there within about 10 minutes because all these little butts will be sticking up in the air and they'll be fanning. They're spreading her pheromone out of the box. She's in there. They're fanning their pheromone out. Bees flying around up here where they used to be will say, wait a minute, there's something going on down here. They have a very acute sense of smell. And by dusk, they will have moved down into that box. I always tell the homeowner, it's like, I'm gonna be back, at dusk, 7:38. Middle of summer, it can be 9 o'clock even, but ratchet ties, then it gets ratchet ties. I close it up. I usually use a screen bottom board so they have some ventilation. You don't want to lock them up where they have no ventilation, 30, 40 minutes later, you get me home, they could all be dead on the bottom of the box if they asphyxiate. Okay, so now here's the thing. If you go out on a swarm call, you are the expert. Yes, even if it's your very first time, you are the bee expert. You are now liable, basically, for this box that's sitting here. I had a guy that he got a call and this house was right next to a school. And it was out front in the front yard where all the kids are gonna be walking by. Yeah, he realized that he was gonna have to leave this box sitting out there until dusk and, there would be bees flying everywhere and pretty soon the principal would be by and, a teacher and probably, the police and, Sometimes it's better to just say, now let's let them move to another location. Or let this swarm, go out on their own and see if nature actually lets it live. That's another thing that, probably only 20% of swarms actually will survive. There's just not enough empty cavities in the trees. Holes under the eaves for them to move into. And even if they do move into under the eaves, they'll probably get exterminated. So we are bee rescue when we go out. We are the face of the Northern Nevada Beekeeping Association. We are going to be the expert. Like I say, even if it's your first time collecting a swarm, they called you. Yes.
Could we set something up to where if we're available, we could attend and observe, for example, you catching a swarm?
Okay, that comes down to logistics. Are you ready to roll within 5 minutes?
Yes.
And can you meet somebody over here at this place? And are you coming with your outfit?
Lights and sirens.
Okay, yeah, so, yeah, volunteer fire department, there we go. I like that example. Yeah, yes, though we never really know when we're gonna get the call.
Right.
So it's tough to coordinate that. It would be a lot easier to be out on the call and see it and then call you up and say, I'm here at this location. I'm still going up and down the ladder, come on over. You can watch and see the setup, that type of thing. But usually catching a swarm is.
Do you have a mentor?
Not yet. We're working on it.
So that'd be a good thing to ask your mentor.
Okay.
To be like, hey, if you have a swarm or somebody that in above this on the swarm list.
Right.
And just be like, and just give them, do that exchange.
It'd be neat if there's like a group text, so like, hey, there's a swarm here. You can, I know you don't want distractions either, so it could go bad, but it'd be interesting.
Good point, very good.
You can watch videos online. I caught my first swarm having never and I just happened to watch the
I've
video.
watched a ton.
And
Yeah,
it'll go just like
that.
it will.
Okay,
Sometimes.
good to know.
Sometimes, yeah. All
So
right.
I just had a swarm this weekend, it was my own swarm, into a very gnarly bush that I could not shake them out of. Took me 3 days to get these bees out because they were just in this, I don't know if you've seen these bushes, they're like contorted filberts. And so they were right in the middle, all these branches, couldn't shake them, couldn't find the queen. It was huge, it's like 2 basketballs. And so I ended up referring to a friend, Barb Smith, she's probably watching. She says, you know what I do is I take built out frames, lean them up against the swarm and then wait for them to chase the queen onto the frame because they're gonna want her to start laying. I waited two days, but I kept checking, finally she was on there. And I was able to move them into a box, but that was the first time I've had to do that. But yeah, it was a long endeavor.
That's a great point. I've used those frames before, like I say, I'll go out, my box will actually have frames drawn out, comb and some honey. And especially if some have fallen onto the sheet, I'll set the frame down there and they'll crawl onto that. And I can pick up the frame, take it over, shake it into the box, and go back and get some more. So there's all kinds of ways to do that. The last thing I want to say before I turn it over to Stefan. Yeah. He's got all kinds of experience too. Is that once you get them in the box, it's dusk, you're wrapping it up, ratchet ties. You go and you put it, I've got a truck, so it always goes in the back of the truck. I've had people put it in their car, or in the trunk. Once I put it in the truck, then I use my other ratchet ties to tie it down in the truck. So it doesn't slide around when I take a corner. It doesn't, I come to a quick stop, it doesn't jerk and, smash. Unfortunately, that was an experience that I learned from where, somebody pulled out from a driveway and I had to stop real fast and even though I had a ratchet tight, they still slid just enough that there was about an inch. And all of a sudden, I just had this billowing, but I did have a camera show on, but it was like, holy mackerel, like, just get it home and I just wait overnight and hope they go back in. And then in the morning, set them up. Yeah, Philippe.
So just two recommendations, like, so you're talking about leaving the box over there. It's always a good idea to have it labeled. I always label those boxes and I put like my name and my phone number and mention that's B, so that way somebody doesn't go there, what is this random box here, and opens them up. Yeah, and the second thing is, like, if you don't have a truck, like I don't have a truck, I got a little Toyota Yaris, like tiny little thing. And I do swarms and I put it inside my main cabin. So make sure that it's very well closed. I had it before where he opens it up and now I can't see inside of my car because all of the bees are everywhere. So I pull into this parking lot and just wait for like 6 hours until all the bees, they go back into the box.
Yes.
I catch swarms too, but I use a cardboard box, but what I like is what the paper comes in from Office Depot. Because they have that top that, fits down really nice over the top.
A banker's box.
Excuse me?
It's a banker's box, basically, like a file box.
Yeah, well, your computer paper comes in these really nice. And so what I do on that box, I mount one of these on here. The nice thing about it, first off, you take that box, you can take the top and you climb up your ladder, and I'm a retired iron worker. I put up high rises. I don't believe in tying ladders off. I don't believe in tying myself off. Back in the day when you worked for American Bridge, they give you a belt, and a lanyard on it, a knife, and you take the knife, cut the lanyard off. Anyway, you climb up the ladder, you can take the box off, shake them into the box, put the lid on, take it back down, set it down on the ground, and then turn this like this. The bees will come down and maybe crack that box just a little bit. And you wait for a while and wait for a while. Pretty soon put that top down after a while. Because what happens, I went out on one call, the bees were in a little juniper about this high. Took my box, shook them into it, put the top on. This thing was open like this. All of a sudden, they're all back. It was their time to move on to their new home. So cardboard box with this on, bolt, it works really good. Another thing, when you do get them home and you put them in your hive, they still might decide, hey, this isn't our home that we wanted to. So get your queen excluder, cut it down real good so it fits just perfect in front of that entrance. I mean, you want it just as tight as can be, because if you got that 1/4 inch crack on the side, the queen can come out through there. And it doesn't always work, because if that hive swarmed 2-3 times, you got that really young queen that can get through that queen excluder. But this thing's here saved me a few. And the queen excluder's done the same too, so that's just another idea.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
In the good old days when we bought 10 frames that were, pre-made but from Manley, the box that they came in was perfect for catching swarms. That's exactly the size of the box that we were gonna dump them into. We collect them all, just turn the box over with the flaps, and in they go. Of course, now we have to buy them in the hundreds.
Yeah. Okay, all right, Stefan, you want to talk about?
So we're almost out of time, so I'll do this quickly. When I get a call, I just walk up to the hive. I have a regular, just a ladder. I mean, I do have a tall ladder, but I'm not gonna do that for You have to ask yourself, how much are those bees worth to you? Are they worth a broken arm or a leg? Like, I'm not gonna climb up really high in the ladder. I'll do a step stool or something like that, but I just walk up, I shake the bees in, I set it down, close up so they can get in. I usually just take a big box or a full box, depending on how big the picture I get from the person is. If it's more than a basketball, then I'll take full hive. I just set it under there and then I go talk to the homeowner. And then every 5 minutes or so, I walk out there with my hive tool brush and scoop all the bees off and let them go up in the air. And then after about half an hour to an hour, they're all in the box and I don't wait till dusk. The thing is that I make sure they're not collecting in that one spot anymore. Once they're no longer collecting in there, the few that might be out for it or looking for a place, they're just gonna return their old hive if they can't find that cluster. So that's how I look at it. Yeah.
What if you go to a job and you decide it's not worth it? You just say to the homeowner, sorry, I'm not gonna do it.
Sorry that, I mean, and so that's the part of vetting them first is like, you want.
Because you're volunteering, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So how high up are they in the tree? And if I can't get to them with my little step stool that I, hang pictures with, and I'm not gonna.
That's nice when they're real low.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I collected one just this last week. It was actually pretty nice. It was on the gentleman's grapevines and he had some little stools out there and I set the hive on the stool and then my scoop just pushed them down into the box and about a half hour or so.
Wow.
Nice.
But any questions? Yeah.
This isn't a question about that per se, but how prevalent, for those of you that are doing this, how prevalent are these calls?
So in September and October, probably 2 or 3 a week, and there are almost always wasps. In the summertime, I intentionally ask my name to be put at the bottom of the list. I don't want to be called, but I'm sure that people get called a lot for this.
I was getting called almost every other day.
I got called 3 times in one day.
Yeah, last year I was about, every other day, about one call. And sometimes, they would be, they were in the pole and then they went inside the pole and I couldn't get you it. So a lot of times you think that would happen.
Do you have ads on Craigslist or something?
No, it was part of the club.
There's a swarm list.
Yeah, there's a swarm
okay.
list, yeah.
Okay.
You had an every other day legitimate phone calls.
It was calls. They weren't all legitimate. No, not all of them, yeah.
How many a week legit?
Legit.
We'll define legit.
So, yeah, define it. I mean, it's like.
I think they're saying ones you could get.
The ones that could actually bring it home.
Right.
It not as often, maybe once.
Every 3 weeks.
Every 2 other week or every 3 weeks, yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
maybe, yeah.
You guys are gonna run out of time. Okay, so we're gonna do the raffle because it says we've got 5 minutes, but we can take a little longer than that. Because everybody wants something for free.
That's right.
Okay.
The stuff that we have back there, the organization has bought from a beekeeper that went, retired from his bees. And so we thought, even though it's used equipment, it's still equipment that you guys can clean up and use, okay? And most of it is used, maybe not all of it, but it's